My friends, good afternoon. My name is Sky McCracken. I am the pastor here at First Methodist downtown Jackson. We're glad that you're here today. It is a blessing to be able to host this event and host all of the First Friday Forums for the Bicentennial celebration, so we're glad you're here. Let us pause for a word of prayer. Gracious God, we are thankful for this day. We are thankful for this community we live in. And today we celebrate businesses all over Jackson and Madison County. We ask that you might continue to bless us, that we might be a blessing to others and be reminded that to those who are given much, much is expected. May we contribute to our community richly, and as we share a meal and fellowship together, may both nourish our bodies and souls. For we pray in the name of the risen Christ. Amen. And I invite Elaine to come forward.
Okay, perfect. Good morning, or is it? Yeah, it's just now good afternoon. I'm Elaine Christian, and I have the honor of serving as the chair of the Jackson-Madison County Bicentennial Commission. We're so glad to have you all here today, and we're enjoying this bicentennial year. It is, we started planning this over a year ago, and we thought we would never get to this point, but it seems now that it's just flying by. So we're always happy to have you here at the First Friday Forum. But to celebrate 200 years of our history in Jackson-Madison County is just phenomenal, and we have enjoyed learning about the community. We consider this bicentennial year to be the largest civic pride initiative our community has ever been involved in, and I think you all will agree. But we have projects and we have events that have been going on. I think when we finish the year, we will have had over 100 events and over 200 people volunteering. So that's a significant part of the community. As always, we have some of our Bicentennial board members that are here today, and I would ask them to stand. Ken Newman is here, Leanne Bentley, Anita K. Archer, Judy Renshaw. Who did I miss? We've got a couple that are at Humboldt at the governor's luncheon, so join me in thanking them for all the work that they do. And I do know that our mayors are typically here, and we typically have several elected officials, but I will tell you, they're all over with the governor in Humboldt at the Strawberry Festival, the governor's luncheon. So we talk about our sponsors also. We could not do this. We are able to offer all of our programming free of charge because of the sponsors of this project. And I draw your attention to the banner that's in the center. Our legacy sponsors are the City of Jackson, Madison County, JEA, and West Tennessee Healthcare. And many of you in this room have been sponsoring this year, and we appreciate that so much. And we have an opportunity, if you have not yet decided to sponsor, Judy and I and Anita Kay have packets. We'll be happy to talk to you at any time. The calendar of events, as I mentioned, we've got a lot of events going on, are on your table. These are just the events for May. We're doing something really cool. We didn't want this project to just be events in the city, so we're going out into the county with these Madison County Heritage events. So tomorrow is out at Spring Creek, and then coming up later in the month, we're in Meaden, we're in Brown's Church, we're in Denmark, we're all over the county. We're in Bemis, so just a lot of fun things going on. We're collaborating with the library and other programs that are at the library. But the program that I wanted to mention today, who was here last month? So I tried this lame April Fool's joke, and nobody really bought it, and nobody actually even thought it was funny. But so I said we were announcing who the finale star was, and I said it was Snoop Dogg. And the mayor went, well, guys, we know who it really is, and it's the Commodores, and it's the place to be on August the 12th and 13th, our finale weekend. We have a 200-voice choir at the Civic Center on Friday night the 12th, and then on Saturday we have a parade in downtown Jackson. We'll inter our time capsule. We'll head out to Jackson Ballpark for an opening act with Lolo, our very own Lauren Pritchard. And then the Commodores are going to rock the stage, and that's offered free of charge. So I would encourage you to get that on your calendar. And then the finale, of course, you can't have a finale celebration without fireworks. So we're excited about that. Our next program will be, we're doing these monthly themes. We selected, our organizing committee worked hard to develop monthly themes, and it's really cool because we can explore the different aspects of our heritage and our legacy. But next month is athletics and leisure, and so we're really happy to be collaborating with the Madison County Sports Hall of Fame. Our presenters will be Dan Morris and Dave Thomas, and they'll talk about the athletic achievements of Madison County. Of course, we always thank the church. Sky and Andrew, Robert, Linda Rizzuto is and her team that do the decorations, and the food is always fabulous. So join me in thanking the church. At this time, we want to hear from our sponsor. So we have Chris Allison with Allison Insurance, and Allison Insurance is sponsoring the program today. But they fit into this program so well because they're also one of our oldest businesses, been involved in this community for so long. And Chris, I think your family came in on a wagon train in the early days. So you want to come up and say something, or we want you to? Okay, thank you. Join me in thanking Chris.
Didn't really want to speak next to Sharon Younger because she's a pro. But the Allisons came here in 1821. We were part of, I think it was 5 or 6 families that came here. My good friend Chuck Bideck says our horse died. Otherwise, we'd be from Texas. But we were some of the first groups settled out in Beach Bluff. Our Allison Insurance Group was started in 1968, and so we're still here and still at it, and we love Madison County. We love this community. But thank you.
Chris, we thank you so much for being a sponsor today, and we appreciate it. At this time, though, our theme this month is small business, and there's no one that knows small business any better than my friend Judy Renshaw. She's 40 years at the Chamber Small Business Development Leadership Program. Endless membership. It's endless what Judy did. So Judy, will you come forward and kind of give us some highlights, and then I'll come back and we'll start our program.
Elaine lied. I don't know everything about businesses. But I am going to tell you a little bit about some of the small businesses in our community. It wouldn't be right in our community to celebrate the Bicentennial without recognizing, especially during the month of May, with it being our small business focus, small businesses in our community who have been here and have stayed the test of time. And Chris, I had no idea that the original Allisons were here in 1800 in Beach Bluff, especially because, that's where I'm from, or I would have made sure that we recognized Allison more so. So when I looked, it was 50 years on the website, so my apologies for that. But we certainly understand and we appreciate everything that Allison's done in our community. If you think back with me in the heritage of our community, the itinerant peddlers came in push carts and wagons, and some of them set up small shops, and that got to be known as mom and pop shops. And it's funny how things go around and come around, and that we now also have mom and pop shops in our own community. But they survived, and they were here years and years, and we appreciate what they contributed to our community. So at this time, I want to recognize some of our older businesses, and I want to preface that by saying that these are representative of a lot of other businesses in our community that have been here and stayed the test of time as well. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about them, and then I'll ask the representatives to stand. The first one is Moore Studio. They were here in 1903. Robert A. and Patty H. Moore were experts in the field of photography when they opened Moore Studio in the 1903. The quality of their photography was recognized as the best in Jackson. Their philosophy of photography was handed down to 3 generations of owners, including Devin Dooley and Mitch Carter, and now Jason Hardy. And with us today, we have Mitch Carter and Jason Hardy. So if you would stand. Capturing in pictures the essence of our community is so important, so thank you for your contributions. The next is S.M. Lawrence Company, and they came here in 1907 as a coal company, and currently as the company of S.M. Lawrence Company, started in 1942. In 1917, Sam M. Lawrence Sr. started S.M. Lawrence Coal Company. In 1942, S.M. Lawrence went into the appliance sales and service business, and then in 1950, S.M. Lawrence went into the HVAC sales and service business. In 1907, the company diversified and joined forces with 11 other mechanical construction companies as a founding member of Comfort Systems USA, and have also expanded to other cities, which is a testament to over 100 years in business and the potential that small businesses have to grow in our community, and they're certainly an example of that. So today we have Ann, Frank, if y'all would stand, Sam, who's the VP in Jackson, Darlene, William Dabney, and Ernest Lawrence. So let's give them a hand for their contribution. The next that we want to recognize is Stevenson Shaw Funeral Home, who came in 1937. Stevenson Shaw Funeral Home was initially established under the name of M.J. Stevenson Funeral Home. It was founded by the late Mr. Max Stevenson on June the 6th of 1937. Following his passing, his wife, Mrs. Evelyn D. Stevenson, also a licensed embalmer and funeral director, took over management. Isn't that like it? A woman just took over. Mr. Earl M. Shaw Sr. and Daisy Trotter Shaw became co-owners on July the 1st of 1954, and the funeral home has been led by a generation of Shaws to the present time. And today we have with us Chandler Shaw and Earl Shaw III. If y'all would stand. Now we're moving on to the 40s. Roberts Jewelers in 1946. Roberts Jewelers was founded March 1st in 1946 in Jackson by Mr. Joe Cohen. The original store was a cornerstone of the downtown area for many years. Mr. Cohen's love for jewelry and passion for people created a successful business that focused on superior quality and excellent customer service. And I remember Mr. Cohen, he was a wonderful man. In 1970, Mr. Cohen hired Janet Silver as a young sales associate. He became a mentor to Janet and taught her everything about jewelry, the jewelry business. And with her passion, she certainly moved on from there. In 1987, Janet became the owner and president of the company. And today we have with us, if you would stand, Janet Silver, Mike Silver, Dennis Hornsby. Thank you from a woman's perspective of having beautiful jewelry here, because I'm in your store often. The next is Garrett Plumbing and Heating Company, who was formed in 1955. When Charles A. Garrett started this business in 55, he wanted to provide high-quality service and installation. This philosophy has been the foundation of their reputation and is one of the main reasons that they have served some of their customers for over 60 years. Now, that's a long time to have one business serve you. After Mr. Garrett passed away in 2013, family members took over the leadership of the business. And today we have with us, if you would stand, Miss Patsy Garrett, who goes in every day to work to check on them, right? Mike Johnson and Diane Garrett Johnson. As I said, these are just representative of a few of the businesses that have been in our community and contributing to our economy for many, many years. So thank you to all small businesses for the contributions that you make, and we look forward to focusing our attention and our activities on small business this month. Thank you.
Great job, Judy. Thank you so much. But, small business is truly the backbone and the heritage of our community, and it's really cool to be able to focus on these small businesses. And there are many others. We are so proud, though, of you that came today and joined us and part of your contributions to growing this community. I failed to mention we do have a little flyer on your table of an event that's coming up that's Arts Backstage, and our very own Andrew Box is participating in that, as well as several other of our arts organizations. So that's May 10th. It's at 5:30, and we want to encourage you to participate with that. It gives me incredible pleasure to introduce our speaker because I have known her but if I tell stories on her, she gets the microphone after me, so I'm in trouble. So Sharon, I'll be good. And then we were neighbors for a number of years as well. So, but when you think about someone who understands our community from a business perspective, from a trend perspective, from a strategic perspective, you think of Sharon Younger and her company, Younger and Associates. I first met Sharon back in the late 80s. She was a professor at Union. I was new at the chamber. We were putting up tables, taking down tables, cleaning up glasses, then doing other meaningful things in terms of programming. But Sharon is, as Chris mentioned, she's one of the best speakers I think you'll ever hear. She speaks nationally. She works with huge organizations as well as a lot of our state and other types of businesses. She has a wonderful staff. They contribute so much to the community. We were working on another project yesterday that Younger is contributing. So we can't say enough about your business, but also the fact that you give back to the community. She's worked with Tennessee Valley Authority. She's worked with the state of Tennessee. She's worked with the local chambers. She's worked with chambers all over, worked with the Economic Development Council, which is a national organization. She's developed industry strategies. And she's also going to tell us a little bit about what's coming, because our monthly theme is always yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So we want to talk about and celebrate what happened yesterday and today, but we're also looking forward to the future. And I know, Sharon, you've been involved somewhat in the Blue Oval project with the recruitment of Ford coming in. It's just my great pleasure to introduce Sharon Younger. And Sharon, come forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It is a pleasure to be here. I brought my phone in case I get an important call. Actually, that's to make sure we get out on time, so you're safe. It really is. It's nice to be here and to get to tackle this topic. I was asked to talk about the history of small business, and I thought, I'm not up for that. I mean, I'm no Emma Inmans Williams or, bless his heart, even a Harvard Alexander. He would not have permitted me to talk about history. So I changed the title to The Story of Small Business, because I can probably tell you a story of small business. But even if I'm not qualified as a historian, I am qualified to be part of a bicentennial. And I can prove that because this is me and my family participating in the Carroll County Sesquicentennial in 1972. So there's my 12-year-old self. And look at Laura Beth. She was cute. She's the only one who didn't know this picture was coming, so she's probably very, well, anyway, Mother, you look good. So there we are. So those are my bona fides to be able to talk to you today, because I do know about this stuff. By the way, after that 1972 event, it appears that Carroll County has forgot to celebrate its bicentennial. But at any rate, I want to talk to you about small business. And, I really, in all the years I was in business here, I haven't really thought about this as being a small business town. Because Jackson always aspires to bigger. It seems like that the things that we are really attracted to are the bigger businesses, the bigger names, and all of us as small businesses want to grow into the bigger businesses. But look at this chart, and I promise my whole presentation will not be charts, but look at this chart. 71% of all of the businesses in Madison County have 1 to 4 employees. This is a community made up to the core. And then the next tranche, those are small businesses too, less than 10. So, we are made up of small businesses, even though that may not be the first impression that people have when they fly through here on I-40 and see all those big boxes as they're coming through town. But we are made up of small businesses. It's also odd, too, of how our economy is put together. And some of these things may surprise you, that this is the number of employees by type of industry. And that biggest bar at the top, that's not healthcare, that is not manufacturing. That big bar at the top that employs 1 out of every 5 people in Madison County is government. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's more of an indicator of how Jackson works. We are the capital of West Tennessee. We are the center of West Tennessee, and we always have been. So if you think about what's located here, I'm not talking about just people who work for the mayors. I'm not just talking about our local government. But if you look at the federal courts, the federal court system is in Jackson. If you look at TVA, they have their West Tennessee regional headquarters in Jackson. If you look at any number of state organizations, District 4 for the Tennessee Department of Transportation is in Jackson. So all of that government support is there because it's so easy for anybody to reach those services in Jackson. And that sort of sets the tone for what the rest of our economy looks like. We have the bigger organizations here that the smaller communities that we serve don't have. So that's kind of an enduring theme of how our businesses are set up. And I will stop to mention, you'll see the long bar there that says manufacturing, if you can see it. We have about 16 to 18% of our economy is in manufacturing. And that is about 3 times as much as exists in the national economy. We have 3 times as much manufacturing in Jackson as the national economy as a whole. So I want to tell you a little bit more, though, how this really breaks down. For years, and this goes back to when I first knew Elaine and Judy. It goes back that long. We started telling the story of Jackson as the center of this trade area that is all of West Tennessee, and that there are 6 factors that cause Jackson to be the center of everything. Well, the first one and the oldest one is transportation. There's transportation, retail, healthcare, and then the big 3 E's, education, entertainment, employment. So transportation is one of the reasons, and this is our city, like almost every city from the founding of the U.S., was founded on a river. Now, our river is the Forked Deer. So other than the Allisons, not much came down the river. I think this is basically how y'all got here, right? So we founded our city on the river, even though we kind of turned our backs on it, and we really don't think of it much in terms of commerce or trade. But that's where we started. But a lot is said about Jackson as it relates to rail. And it's true that railroading is a part of our history, and I know there are a lot of people who are really big into history that could tell you a lot about that. But, actually, if we're honest about it, our railroading past is a little bit squirrely because we did have some rail, but most of it got torn up and destroyed during the Civil War. And even though a lot of people were employed by the railroad industry after that, it's basically because the Tigrets created the rail yard around Island Yard, where all of the rail system was repaired. All of the repair and the manufacturing related to the rail went on in Jackson for about 3,000 miles. We covered a lot of the country in terms of repair. So even then, we knew how to make things, manufacture things, and it was tied to that. And then, of course, we took that tragic turn with our rail history with Casey Jones, but in true classic Jackson fashion, we've turned that into a tourist attraction. And the other thing I'm going to tell you as we go through this, I'm going to try to tell you a few brand stories, too, as we talk about this, because the brands that make up our small businesses are a fun part of our story. And we had some fun with Casey Jones a few years back because we pointed out that the train they were using in their logo was from the 50s, and so we actually helped them create a new logo with a vintage train in it. But when you look at transportation, we had river. We kind of had a dubious history with rail, but it was roads where we really dominated in terms of transportation. And if you look at our highway system, we've got all these U.S. highways that converge here. I-40 passes through here. It's a great place for distribution, and probably nobody typifies that more than Central Distributors. So there's a brand story. They're located here. They get their product out all across West Tennessee. It's a growing, thriving company, a large employer. And it was related to back in the day, if you remember, when Governor McWhorter was in office, he was one of our handful of governors that were from West Tennessee. And one of the things that he did was start an initiative that said that we would have a 4-lane divided highway from every county seat to an interstate. And so basically, that's how we got to have the road system that we have today. So that was broadband, baby, in the McWhorter days. So the next thing that we come to after transportation is the idea of retail. And it's easy to think about Jackson in terms of retail because we've had some really iconic retailers who have been here, and the story of retail is really interesting. From 1821 until our founding in 1821, it took from there to 1985 to get to $500 million in retail sales. So it took most of our history to reach that mark. And then when we hit 1985, look what happens. From 1985 to 1996, our retail sales doubled. And then between 1996 and 2011, they doubled again. So retail has been a big part of our story, and it's been an interesting part of our story. I think it was great that Judy mentioned in her run-up, kind of the peddlers and the mom and pops and those sort of businesses, and they really dominated our downtown Jackson area. We had a lot of mom and pop stores there. And we had the original big box stores that located down there. We had a Sears and a Penny's downtown and some of the other things. But we really were lucky because we had the early big box stores here that didn't exist in any of the small towns around Jackson. So everybody used that highway system to get in and come into downtown. But we had a wonderful array of small businesses, specialty retailers that brought variety and brought a lot of people to Jackson for a lot of things. And so there's Jackson. And also in Honor Harbor, there's the First National Bank sign up there in that picture. Interstate came through 1968, and Jackson took a big leap north and basically grew to meet the interstate. And at that time, the old Hickory Mall came into being. And again, West Tennessee likes big names. And so the big box stores, the big retailers of that day, all were in Jackson. And again, that brought a number of people to Jackson for our retail. The things that you couldn't find in a Humboldt, or you couldn't find in a Huntington, or you couldn't find even in a Dyersburg or a Paris, those were all in Jackson. So it kept everyone coming to our city for that reason. And then, of course, we have leapfrogged for many years now that I-40 boundary, and you will see all of the retail that has come even further as we continue to grow and continue to push our boundaries along the interstate and along our major highway sector. There are, however, a few companies around who have made the whole leap from downtown to the Columns area. And when I was thinking about stories of companies that I wanted to tell today, it hit me. I thought, well, I want to tell the story of Roberts Jewelers. So I called Janet and I said, Janet, would it be okay if I talked a little bit about the story of Roberts Jewelers? She said, yeah, but she said they've already called me and asked if they could do that. And I thought, my gosh, Judy, I haven't seen you in 20 years and we still think alike. So at any rate, what I remembered about Roberts is that, they are one of our companies, one of our retailers that made the transition from being a downtown business to being one of our van drive businesses. And what's interesting, when they were in a downtown business, they were part of a group of businesses, Nathan's, Nolan's, Friedman's, Kisber's, if you think about those businesses that were there. But Mr. Cohen chose the name Roberts. Because he wanted something that felt open to everybody. It was 1946, it was the end of World War, and he thought Cohen's might not be accepted as much as Roberts. So Roberts became a name that everybody knew, and I think everybody came to know him as Mr. Roberts. The other thing, though, that happened is when Janet took over years later, Roberts also sort of covered the fact that this was a woman-run business, because that was also new and also different, and it was definitely a man's world in the jewelry world. So Roberts is a name that has stood for, Cohen has stood for woman entrepreneurship and has moved from downtown to the north part of Memphis. So I think that's an interesting story to tell. One of the reasons that we don't think a lot about small business is because some of our small businesses grew into very large businesses. And this is probably not one of the first brand marks that Billy did, but it was earlier in his career when the Kirkland's brand mark came about. So Kirkland's came up here as a small business. They later went on to be traded on the public stock exchange. They are a public company. They are everywhere. One of the scariest projects, wasn't really scary, I guess it was exciting, that I had early in our younger associates years, is Kirkland's tapped us to make their roadshow video. And a roadshow video is what you show to the SEC and other investors when you take your company public. So that was kind of a challenge to make something that stood up to those standards. But that's typical Jackson, to tap another business in Jackson to support you in that. And Leanne, I don't think your mother and dad were in the Kirkland's video, but I think you guys have been in a lot of the other videos. You've had starring roles in a lot of the videos that we've shot around Jackson, but I don't think you were in our Kirkland's video. But you've done some good work for us acting in that, so I appreciate it. So the next of Jackson's attractions, the things that really bring us to where we are, is healthcare. And that really doesn't surprise you. If you looked at the chart, that did rank pretty high on what's part of our economy is healthcare. And modern healthcare, as we know it in Jackson, goes back to 1950. Now, there was healthcare here from the very beginning. But in 1950, both the Jackson Clinic and Jackson General Hospital were founded. And Jackson has, again, attracted a healthcare system that is what brings people together in the center. We have almost every medical specialty and subspecialty that you can name. We have hundreds of doctors. We have hospitals and specialized units within that hospital. But I think I love the brand story of the Jackson Clinic. Jackson Clinic was founded in 1950, as I already said. They started by 4 specialists, and they've grown to 140 specialists and 25 medical specialties. This is their brand mark that we helped them introduce in the early 90s. And does anybody know what the Jackson Clinic logo was before this one was introduced? There wasn't one. This was it. From 1950 until we introduced this one in the early 90s, they didn't have this. And I could ruin this logo forever for you by telling you what it depicts, but I won't. I'll leave that to your imagination, like all good logos. So now we get to the 3 E's, and I'll begin with education, because that is an extremely important part of what makes up our community. I've said this in a lot of speeches, and we don't really feel that about Jackson so much, but this is a college town, isn't it? I was having dinner with some friends not too long ago, and we were in Memphis, and they were asking me about Jackson because they knew I was from Jackson. And they said, that's a college town. There's so many colleges there. And I said, you're right. That's exactly how it is. And that's always been true. I got a solicitation in the mail from Union the other day telling me they were 200 years old, or almost 200 years old. So Jackson's celebrating a bicentennial too. University of Tennessee, the logo we have there has Martin on it, but the University of Tennessee has a lot of investment in this city. The UT Family Practice Center is here, where they train doctors for the medical center. We also have the Agricultural and Educational Research Center that is here. And so they have a presence here. Another wonderful Jackson story is the Jackson story of Lambeth becoming the Lambeth campus of the University of Memphis. So that's a wonderful story of preserving the core and the heart of our community and making that rich asset even richer by connecting it to a bigger picture. I also want to stop and talk about the TCAT, the Tennessee College of Applied Technology. And anybody who's heard me talk about economic development anywhere over the last 5 years has probably heard me shamelessly say that I wish I were a TCAT cheerleader. Because I really think that TCATs are cool. And one of the things that, if you probably heard it on the radio or read it somewhere in the last few years, not the last few years, in the last few days, that it is the TCAT of Jackson that is going to run the TCAT facility at the Blue Oval plant. So they could have chose Memphis or Whiteville or set up a new one, but they chose the Memphis, the Jackson campus to move on to the Blue Oval campus and run that one. I think, Leanne, I think you were involved in the rebranding of the TCAT, so that was fun. You know, that's a really good rebranding story to go from vocational school to the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, and very important part. And then Jackson State, long time and lane to have a historically black university in our community also adds to the richness and the culture. So we are education, and that is very important to who we are. The next of the big E's, entertainment, and this one is also very deep. We know that Jackson has a rich musical culture. We know that it is known for, well, we know rockabilly. But, you know, it's like when we were working on the brand for Jackson, the idea of music and how it connects, the way rock and roll and country came together as only it could have when it met in midway in Jackson. And so we've got a lot of history around that, and this is the brand for the new museum that's just been here a couple of years, which is a lot of fun to have in Jackson. Here a couple, stop, and here's a hats off to Billy Warboys. Here's Billy's logo for the NED and also for the Jackson Theater Guild, which has provided a lot of good entertainment for Jackson and is one of the fun parts of our entertainment culture that really reaches a regional audience. I'm very happy to have both of these here. The other thing, aside from just entertainment and the music history, one of the things that Jackson has always been known for are our restaurants. Isn't that funny? You know, I showed you how the retail sales doubled so quickly. Well, one of the things that happened was liquor by the drink. So we went from $500 million to $1 billion in almost no time. But also it was because as we went to the north and big box stores were coming along, franchised food was also becoming the norm across the United States. Not just McDonald's, but everything up and down. And Jackson, because of our location in the center of West Tennessee and because of our location on the interstate, we got one of everything. Every franchise that there was, every type of restaurant, every chain, every single chain that we got, that there was, we got it. And people used to go, who's going to eat at all these? You know, what are we going to do with all these? And it kept growing and growing, and the business is still there. But fortunately, we've also had a lot of good Jackson-based restaurants. But if you're wondering why we have so many chains in relation to the hometown, it's that preference for people wanting to come to Jackson for something bigger than what they have. So they might have a mom and pop store, or they might have a mom and pop restaurant, but when they come to Jackson, they have typically and historically wanted to come here for those big national names and big box stores and things that they could only find in Jackson. But our small businesses have prevailed, and they are what give us the flavor of Jackson, so to speak. When we talk about entertainment, though, the entertainer that really, I think, proves my story of people wanting to come to Jackson for something bigger would be the Jackson Symphony. The Jackson Symphony is over 50 years old. And it's another example of Jackson having something that reflects an audience and a population much bigger than the people who just live here. The Jackson Symphony is here because we do serve a big population and because people do look to Jackson for all types of entertainment, particularly the types of entertainment they can't get in their own community. And by the way, Jackson does have suburbs now, don't we? We're part of an MSA. And so our suburban people and our other people want to come in and want all of these types of entertainment that we're able to offer. Now, employment is the last of the three big E's: education, entertainment, employment. And Jackson has always been known as an employment center that would bring people in. In Jackson, the way we deal with our business recruitment has changed a bit. Here's the evolution, by the way. I want to stop and tell you a little brand story about Jackson. Here's the evolution of the Jackson brand. A few years back, these were the logos for the City of Jackson, the Jackson Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the Chamber. So basically, every time we spent money promoting one or the other of these entities, we didn't get that whole effect of having one cohesive brand that represented Jackson. So we did a lot of focus groups. Because it was going to be hard for everybody to give up their brand identity, for everybody to have to be part of a bigger brand than the brand they were. So everybody needed to have buy-in about what is Jackson, who is Jackson. So we brought in all of the business leaders, we brought in all of our elected leaders, we brought in particularly small business people, and we said, tell us about Jackson. Tell us the story of Jackson. And we kept hearing stories like, well, it's just so easy to move here because it's so easy to get connected with everything you need in this city. Or it's just so easy to be in business here or start a business here because it's so easy to get connected to everybody in Jackson. And then the tourism people talked about how it's so easy to stay here and use it as a connection for all of these day trips that take you outside of Jackson and all of the things that you want to see. So that became part of the Jackson brand story. So that's why you see Jackson Connect here, because it's where we connect healthcare, it's where we connect retail, it's where we connect government services, it's where we connect with each other. It's where we all look toward our other small businesses to support us when we are coming into Jackson. So I think that's an important part of that brand legacy that's there, and that brand has also spread to other parts of the community, and I'm always happy when I see elements of that brand. By the way, Jackson did an excellent job of branding. I mean, we took it to the core. You can see the number of businesses and everything that embraced it. But again, even when it comes to employment, even though we have a lot of employers who started out as small businesses or are small and medium businesses, and even though 71% of our businesses are small businesses, Jackson still is known for some of our larger names. Again, we like that big name stuff in West Tennessee. We like to gravitate around it. We like to talk about, we like to make those brands part of our brand story. So we think about things like Kellogg's and Black & Decker, Owens Corning, Toyota. And those are the things that Jackson is known for, are these bigger employers. Even though they employ a lot of people, they do not employ the majority of the people. Most people in Jackson and Madison County work for one of our small businesses. And yet we're all very proud that we are here to serve these businesses and be part of this group of businesses. Speaking of big business, one of the things that Elaine wanted me to do was tell you a little bit about what's ahead with Ford and SK and Blue Oval City. And I'll tell you a few statistical things about it, and then I will take a minute to relate that to kind of the future of some of our small businesses in Jackson. So as you're aware, I know all of you are aware, Blue Oval City is between here and Memphis. It's at exit 42 on I-40. It's a 4,000-acre tract, and it has been chosen for Ford's largest investment ever to make the Ford Lightning electric truck. And basically what they're planning to do is to employ, by 2026, they will employ 5,760 people directly at the Ford and SK plants. Now, if you've ever heard me speak before, you know I talk about that magic multiplier effect. And that's one of the things that we do at Younger, is we help predict what that multiplier effect is. And basically, in order to support those 57, almost 5,800 jobs at Ford, a lot of local jobs will have to be created. And they'll be created across the economy, whether it is additional police officers, whether it is additional teachers for the new kids in school, whether it is a quick stop on the corner that's serving coffee every morning as people go to work, or guess what, people buying more insurance. All of those things are going to happen. And so we're going to be looking at about 20,000 jobs total. Now, it will create more jobs than that overall, but about 20,000 in the 8 counties that are within the drive time range. If you look at Jackson, we're right on the edge of that drive time range, and so most of the population is going to locate within 20 to 30 minutes of the site. So we're going to feel the impact of that in a lot of ways. And I want to show you a little bit. It's kind of hard to imagine this, but I'm going to show you a quick breakdown. Basically, we're looking at adding $1.2 billion annually to wages in the area, $1.2 billion. Now, remember, we're only spending about $2 billion in Jackson today. That's what's being spent in our economy. So we're going to add $1.2 billion to that. Now, bankers in the group, about $265 million of that will go in the bank or go out in taxes. So there's going to be opportunities there for a number of people. But as we break it down across the board, one of the big areas that you see here, this is how the spending will break down across different categories. And I'll read a couple of these for you. $180 million annually will go into housing. And that will probably be larger than that at the beginning as people seek where they're going to go. But that's a lot of money going into the housing market. So that's new houses being built. That is people moving into multifamily housing. It's people who are going to be looking. Jackson is probably going to be one of the early beneficiaries of the housing related to this, because we have the ability to stand up more housing more quickly. And heaven knows what SM Lawrence, what business you guys are going to be in as this thing goes. I can't imagine what you guys are going to think of to do as this rolls out and gets this big. And Garrett, you better get busy. You got some plumbing to do. But essentially, this is going to be a lot that rolls out in terms of housing. And one of the things that Jackson has always been blessed with are good developers. And that's another reason that I say that Jackson will be one of the areas that will get a lot of benefit from this, is because we have a lot of people who keep a lot of things on the drawing board. Even when there wasn't a lot of housing being built or multifamily being built after the recession, there were a lot of years when there wasn't any housing being built. Jackson had Jackson Walk come up. If you look out at the columns, you'll see a multifamily housing that's coming out of the dirt as fast as it can go. What's it called, Kayla? Union? Okay. But it's a Gary Taylor development that looks like it's being built exactly for this housing boom, but it's not. That's been on the drawing board under design for 4 years. And that's the kind of thing that happens. We've had a history of good developers in Jackson, whether it was Wallace and Harris, whether it's Hal Crocker, whether it is Gary Taylor, whether it's the McAlexanders. When you look at a lot of other communities, the opportunity is there, but the risk takers who do the development may not necessarily be in place. And so that creates a lot of small business opportunities as we go along. But if you look at how this spending goes, you will see that I think it's almost the second largest category of spending is insurance. So I wasn't kidding you guys. It is a big opportunity in that area as well. Another longtime business that I wanted to mention while we're on the topic of housing is Town & Country Realtors. This is a brand that goes a long way back in Jackson. Reggie Smith founded this company, and it was around when Jackson, when it started that big transition from downtown to north. Town and Country Realtors was there for that growth. And they have a branding story that's interesting. You know, they knew how Jackson loved big national brands. So for a while, they were Town and Country Better Homes and Gardens. They adopted the Better Homes and Gardens name because everybody knew that name, and that was a bigger brand. Well, this is a typical Jackson story. They outgrew that. Town and Country became a bigger, better brand than Better Homes and Gardens. So they dropped that and are now Town and Country, and you still see that sign out there, even though they've moved ownership on. It's an example of a company that continues. Here's a group of people I have to brag on because they have some brand integrity. We got a chance to help them many years ago. It was not in 1821, but we did help them when they were trying to determine how to position the company, what sort of look they wanted. And we talked about how Allison is in the business of helping you manage risk and your partner in that area. And I was so happy. I was looking at all of their marketing material a couple of days ago, and I was happy to see, Suzanne, that you guys are so true to that brand and that brand story. So that was kind of fun and gratifying. So we've also seen a lot of companies grow within Jackson and have to do a lot of changing and adapting, and we're going to see more of this. I popped this one up here because this was a fun one. You know, a lot of our professional groups grow, and they have more names than they can wrap around the building, so they have to come up with a new name that shortens it. So they had so many partners at this accounting firm that they decided to go back, and I met with them, and it was really hard. It's like, how are we going to tell which partner has to take their name off the firm? And so essentially what we came up with is we'll just name it ATA after the founding partners. Fortunately, it was early enough that we didn't fall for the trend and name it A2T, but we went with ATA, and so that became a nice brand for them. And then, again, financial services, there were two areas of our community that we have not had the kind of participation in historically that there are going to be big opportunities for. And we've had some really strong banking, accounting, financial services. We really have strong areas there, but we haven't grown them to the extent. I guess it's because we have 3 times as much manufacturing as anything else. We have to have less of something else to equal 100%. So there's a lot of room for growth in these areas. I put these up only because it's kind of funny that we named all 3 of these organizations along with the leadership here. Resource Federal was the TVA credit union, and so they had to branch out and grow. Patriot Equity was the postal employee and railroad employee credit union, so they became Patriot Equity. And Leaders was Teachers Credit Union. And Teachers Credit Union obviously had a big, strong base that they could pull from with the teachers, but they had also incorporated health care and some of the other really strong sectors of the Madison County economy. So it made sense that they would be for leaders in education and leaders in health care and leaders in these other industries. So that's where the naming came from there. Here are a few other brand stories that I think are very important and other opportunities, because as we put $1.2 billion a year into new wages in the region, we want to make certain that we support what I call the big 3 E's: education, entertainment, and employment. Quality of life, in other words. That affordable housing is a piece of that. But one of the important things is making certain that our support for the community and supporting important organizations remains a part of our background and a part of what we are in Jackson and Madison County. The Carl Perkins Center is a perfect example of that. Gets a lot of support, serves an area much larger than Jackson is continuing. And, you know, we have a history of steady support, but that history of steady support comes from people like us in this room. It's our small businesses that get connected, that connect with each other in Jackson and support these sorts of organizations. So even though we've got a lot of exciting things ahead, we've got brands to expand, we've got stories to pass on to a next generation, we're going to go beyond just our pitiful little river story and our quirky little railroad story and our strong road story. What lies ahead is going to look different, but it's going to be built on the backbone of the businesses that have always been here. And it's going to depend on the fact that we maintain the quality of life and support the organizations that are so important to our community. So I did not tell you the history of small business, or as I told somebody when I said what my speech was going to be, I said, I'm going to talk about the history of the economy of Jackson. Can you sleep through that? And so I hope that the story gives you a little bit better feel for how we came to where we are today, and I hope it ignites a lot of hope about where we're going to go over the next few years. And, you know, I talk about what's happening at Blue Oval. I will tell you that I'm a little bit gratified to be able to talk about what is going to happen there, because for 12 years I gave speeches about something's going to come there. And, you know, we didn't lose faith, and finally we are seeing it come to fruition. So I'm happy that I'm not here for the 13th time to tell you something is going to come to the mega site. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. It's so good to see the faces of my friends that I haven't seen in a while. And so I thank you. I thank our sponsors, and I thank you for being here.
Sharon, thanks so much. Wow, what you have accomplished since you started your company and the impact you've had in helping other businesses grow. It's just an honor to say I knew you when, and proud of your company and your team that's here today. And it was a wonderful presentation. You know, we've got a lot to be proud of our legacy and our heritage of building this community. But then we start talking about what's going to happen right down the road and the impact it's going to have. You know, that's why we're talking about yesterday, today, and tomorrow with the Bicentennial. Chris and team, we're so proud. Greg and Suzanne, we're so proud to have you sponsor today. I hope you're excited after hearing what Sharon had to say, but we appreciate that. Our next First Friday Forum will be Athletics and Leisure, June the 3rd. Please come back and join us. We have a lot of fun with these. But then don't forget, save those dates, August the 12th, August the 13th, you don't want to miss. And we're just going to continue working with the efforts and finish strong. Most everything is planned. We just have to execute. Is that right, Judy? Okay. We are dismissed, and thank you all for being here today.